Welcome to another DFO Fantasy Show. It is Tuesday, November the 18th, and I'm your host, Brock Seguin, managing fantasy editor of dailyfaceoff.com. We've got a packed show today. We will start with the fantasy hockey news and notes. We'll get to Brock's lock of the day, of course. We got to give away a free month of 5v5 Premium as well, and then we have a visit from Daily Faceoff prospect analyst Stephen Ellis. We're going to be doing this every other week on Tuesday, dive into all things Dynasty and keeper leagues, talk about some young players and his outlook for them, not only this season, but in the seasons to come. But let's get into the news and notes first, and we will start with Drew Doughty, who we mentioned a little bit yesterday. He is considered week to week with a lower body injury, so he's going to obviously miss an extended period of time. I mentioned yesterday that Brant Clark's probably the one guy that benefits the most from this from a blue line standpoint. Still wasn't on the top power play. They still rolling out those 5 forwards on the top power play yesterday, but he played a season high 22 minutes, 53 seconds last night with Doughty out on Monday. Next, another defenseman here. Some positive news. Dougie Hamilton, who's been out with a lower body injury. He traveled with the Devils to Tampa Bay and could return to the lineup during the 3-game road trip. It's unclear whether or not he will return to the lineup on Tuesday or if it will be later in the road trip. So as of the time of recording this, we are considering Hamilton questionable for Tuesday. Then we've got Charlie McAvoy, who, as I mentioned yesterday, was struck in the jaw by a puck over the weekend. He is basically he's being reevaluated. They said he's got no timetable for his return. They're still evaluating the injury to see if he's going to require surgery. So basically out indefinitely for now, and we should get a more clear timetable here in the coming days or week. And then sticking with Boston, just a quick update here on Viktor Arvidsson. He's week to week with a lower body injury, and he has been added to IR. A couple quick ones to get to now. We've got Jake Neighbours, who's been out with a lower body injury. He was a full participant in Monday's practice. He traveled with the team to Toronto for the start of their 5-game road trip. So again, unclear whether or not he returns immediately and plays Tuesday. So we're considering him questionable to play Tuesday, but should return at some point during this 5-game road trip. And lastly, Josh Norris, a rare positive injury update for Josh Norris. He's been out since opening night due to an upper body injury. But he participated in practice on Monday and could return ahead of schedule. Obviously, he's been out since opening night, so he's missed the last 18 games. He would be a huge addition to that Sabres team that's just been incredibly banged up due to injury. That is it for the news and notes today. But before we jump into Brock's lock of the day, it's time for our weekly giveaway. We're handing out a free month of 5v5 hockey premium betting tools. So if you are just new to the show, on YouTube, we were having viewers pick their favorite bets of the day, post them in the comment section. Any bet that won earned you an entry into today's draw. So you have 5 chances if you go 5 for 5 to win a free month at 5v5 Premium using their betting tools, their DFS tools, all that. So if you want to participate, we're going to do it again next Tuesday. Comment your favorite bet tonight. Keep it reasonable, no minus 300s, and if it hits, you're entered into next week's draw. But let's find out who takes home our very first 5v5 Premium subscription. Let's spin the wheel here and give one away. Our winner is Don Pablo 58008. Congratulations to you. So the easiest way to do this, let's have you email support@5v5hockey.com. Show proof of your account on YouTube here, and we will get you that free month of 5v5 hockey. So support@5v5hockey.com for you, Don Pablo. And as always, make sure you're commenting your favorite bet to earn a chance of winning this next week. But now let's get to the Brock's lock of the day. And this segment is a presentation of Betway. Join the action and download the Betway app. Create an account today and enjoy our sign-up bonus. 18 plus, please play responsibly. So Brock's lock of the day here. As always, we've got the 5v5 model up with us. And yesterday, the Hurricanes depthed all the scoring last night. So Ehlers was held off of the score sheet, bringing us to 11-8 on the season, a 7.8 return on investment percentage so far. So still not bad. We've been a bit of a tough stretch here the last couple of nights, but still in the green for the season. And I absolutely love tonight's lock of the day. I actually picked the lock before I even looked at 5v5's model, and then it just reaffirmed my feelings because it's the number one pick of the day according to the model. So I absolutely love it tonight. We've got Matt Coronato over 3.5 shots on goal. I talked about Coronato's shot volume on yesterday's show. His last 5 games, he's averaging over or nearly 19.5 minutes per game. He's fired 30 shots with 43 shot attempts. That's 6 shots on goal per game and 8.6 shot attempts per game. Just absolutely absurd numbers. And tonight you're getting over 2.5 shots at just minus 125. Just an unbelievable line there. Get it before it's gone. So he's hit this obviously now in 5 straight games, and tonight he faces a Chicago team that gives up the 8th most shot attempts and the 2nd most shots on goal this season. So I absolutely love Matt Coronato. Minus 125 for 2.5 shots on Betway. So go ahead, lock that in as tonight's Brock's lock of the day. And now we will be joined by our friend Steven Ellis and talk about some Dynasty and Keeper Leagues. Steven, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you so much for joining us. We've been talking about this segment for a couple of weeks. Good to finally get it off the ground. We're going to be doing this bi-weekly. And as always, we encourage our viewers to reach out and let us know, because obviously Dynasty and Keeper Leagues are a little bit different, right? You're picking up players more for the future. Obviously, you still want to win in the short term. So what we're going to do today is I've outlined some names of younger players that maybe listeners and viewers don't know the most about. And Steven, nobody's as bright as you when it comes to some of these young players. So we're going to have you kind of just outline how you feel about this player in the short term and what their long-term outlook is. So you ready to dive in here?
Let's do it.
Let's start with the Pittsburgh Penguins. We're going to start, with Sergei Murashov. With Tristan Jarry out, Murashov was promoted to the NHL and has gone 1-1 with a 152 goals against average, 938 save percentage, and 1 shutout. During training camp, there were a lot of reports that he looked like the best goalie in Penguins camp. So do you think he's a type of guy that can steal the number one job as soon as this year, or is he still more of a dynasty keeper hold for next year?
I feel like they're still going to be a bit patient here because you're talking about a 21-year-old goalie that has had a very quick rise. Like, you look at this, 2 years ago, he was mostly playing Russian junior hockey, which is not a super high level. Then they wanted to control his development splits last year in the AHL and ECHL. It was excellent in both. Like, he's been good at every level. There hasn't been a time where he hasn't been good at some level, and that's what makes it really exciting here. But he is still 21 years old. I think you still want to be patient with him. That being said, he does look like Pittsburgh's goalie of the future. I think with Artur Silov's bit older, you kind of know what he's capable of at this point. I don't think we're going to see a guy that's all of a sudden competing for Vezina trophies. But with Murashov, as this Pittsburgh team continues to work on their pipeline, it looks like they finally have that goalie they're looking for. But we still can't ignore Joel Blomqvist, who, this point last year, looked like he was going to be the goalie of the future. So I think he still has to overcome that. But given everything we've seen of Murashov, he's got the inside track right now. I don't think he's going to be the number one like a month from now type thing.
Ben Kindel was kind of a surprise making the team out of training camp. Murashov looked like he had a chance, but it ended up being Ben Kindel, the player that made it as the number 11 overall pick this summer. And he's been really solid so far. 5 goals in 17 games, 7 points overall. He saw a stint on that top line with Sidney Crosby, back down to the third line for now. What's your outlook here for this season and in the near future? Because obviously it looks like he's staying in Pittsburgh for the time being.
You know, I asked some people who think like he could actually be at the World Juniors come December. So we'll see if that happens. Like, for him, I think a lot of people still don't know what type of player he's going to be. And that's because, he put up a lot of points in the WHL last year, a lot on the power play, but was he going to be able to do that in the NHL? Not a lot of people were convinced. I think right now he's going to be one heck of a support guy, a guy who will get some shots on net, but he'll bring that really strong work ethic to every single shift. I just think, maybe this was a situation kind of like Emmett Finney, where he started off of a great training camp. He had nothing to lose, got to go out there and just prove everything. And that momentum kind of carried on. But we've seen Kindel kind of slow down in the last couple of weeks. And I think that maybe we're at some point here, I wouldn't be surprised if they do send him to the WHL, if the Penguins start to fall a little bit and they're not in the playoff hunt anymore. And they're like, okay, just go out there and work on getting a little stronger, work on making quicker moves and go out there and win the World Juniors. So we'll see there. But I think that he's he's looking like a really good middle six player that could step into the top six one day. I'm just not sure like what his high end is at this point.
So more of a short-term streaming option if he ever gets bumped back up to that top line. And obviously, he would provide a big boost for Team Canada. So hopefully the Penguins make the right decision there. Let's talk about Artem Levshunov from the Chicago Blackhawks, obviously the number 2 overall pick in 2024. And he recently took over as the power play 1 quarterback in Chicago. And Chicago, for as bad as they've been for a couple of years, looking a little bit better this year. And there's always been a power play that's been really, really good. And Levshunov's had 8 assists in his last 9 games, including 4 of them on the power play. So do you think he's the future long-term power play quarterback in Chicago? Obviously, Sam Rinzel started there this year. I know when I talked to you in the preseason, you felt like Levshunov profiled better as that power play 1 quarterback versus Sam Rinzel, and that's come to fruition now. Is he the future there?
I think so. Like when you look at Levshunov, I feel like there was always more upside there than Sam Rinzel. It's another situation of Rinzel was a better prospect heading into the season, but there's also a big age gap there, right? There's a couple of years there, so he had that extra runway. But Levshunov it always felt like every level he's gone to, just like with Murashov, he's bounced around a lot. He went from Belarus, the USHL, NCAA, AHL, and NHL, like back to back to back to back to back. So it's a lot of adjustment every single season, but with Levshunov, once he figures out the pace, he knows what to do. He can put up points on the board. So I do think that is probably going to be that power play guy for the long run. It always felt like he was probably going to be more of a 50-point guy at best in the NHL. We'll see if he get higher than that, but right now he's shooting a lot. So I like them both kind of in that short term because he's playing so well right now, but in the long run because the Blackhawks, they've got one of the best pipelines in hockey, and they're going to be good. Like they're going to be a legit contender sooner rather than later. Right now, it's fun, but I don't think it's sustainable. Wait till they get everybody kind of up to speed, and that's where Levshunov's going to really thrive.
Yeah, in a couple of years, they could look a lot like the Anaheim Ducks do right now, right? Like a team that just really built up a lot of prospects, and they're all kind of flourishing at one time. One name I did not anticipate talking to you about was Braden Bowman, who's kind of come out of nowhere and just immediately in the Vegas Golden Knights top 6, top power play unit. He's been immediately put in a spot to succeed, and he has 1 goal, 8 shots, 15 shot attempts in 3 games so far. So is he for you just more of a short-term fantasy ad right now while he's in this role, or do you think there's some sneaky longer-term upside here?
We don't see a ton of guys that go from like undrafted CHL free agents to everyday NHL contributors. So we'll kind of have to, it feels like it's more of a short-term thing. I did like him in Henderson last year, 36 points in the AHL might not seem like a lot, but Henderson didn't have a ton of skill to work with, so I thought he looked really good in his first year of pro hockey. What he's been able to do this year in Henderson, which is slightly stronger, has been very impressive, and good on him scoring early with Vegas. But I don't know if we're going to see him get to like 8 or 9 games in the NHL before they send him back type thing. We'll see. I still not super high on him. I feel like he might just be a good AHL player, but he is an older prospect. I think that's also to keep in mind here is that he is 22. He'll be 23 when the season ends. So he's a bit older than some of these other guys on this list. He's got that extra development. But I'd say right now there's still a lot of momentum. He's got the 1 goal in 3 games. I'd say I would keep an eye on him for as long as he's up in the NHL. But I don't know if he's a long-term threat here.
Speaking of older prospect, Arsenij Gritsiuk is a player that I'm very high on this season. I really do think that he's going to be a factor in the second half of the season. They kind of eased him in, playing 12, 13 minutes a night on that second line. But now with injuries starting to pile up in New Jersey, he's seen that usage increase. He's up over 17 and a half minutes per game in his last 4 games. And during that time, he's scored 2 goals and 1 assist. So as the role continues to grow for Gritsiuk, do you think that he's a player that could be a real star for the Devils?
I think so. Like I'm thinking he's probably not more than a 50-point guy in the NHL, but he's on pace for what, like around 20 goals, around 40 points. So it's been a really impressive start for him. He's got a good frame there. He's just strong. He's not huge, but he goes out there and hits guys. Skating has always kind of been one of the weaknesses, but it hasn't been an issue for him. So given the right support system, I think he's going to be able to get you points. He's going to be able to do some other things well. So I think like in a deeper league, he's definitely very valuable. But Gritsiuk is someone that I've had to think about it for streaming purposes in my fantasy league, and I haven't done it yet. But like you mentioned, he's a bit older. He's 24. You kind of know what he's going to be at this point. I don't think we're going to see a guy just explode and be a totally different player in 2 years. But if he gets you 40, 50 points a season, I think you're pretty happy.
So you don't think he's somebody that profiles to be a potential, top six winger for them that could be like a 60-point guy? You think he's going to hover around that 50 points?
Yeah, and I think he'll probably play in the top six, but he'll go out there and do other things. So he'll go out there and bring energy. He'll get in the way of shots. Like he'll be annoying to play against.
Let's talk about Matt Savoy in Edmonton. Savoy's spot in the Oilers' top six currently is probably going to disappear once RNH is back, but he's really shown strides in the last couple of weeks, and obviously the Oilers are growing more increasingly comfortable with using him in the top six with guys like McDavid and Draisaitl. Do you think? I'm assuming that he's more of a long-term project here still for fantasy, but do you think he projects to be a future top six winger in that roster?
Yeah, like that feels like for me, it's like top six or bust kind of thing for him. And I'm a big Savoy fan. I've loved him for a long time. I think with him, it's just he's got to go out there and like he's actually been very unlucky this year. If you look at the metrics, he's been able to generate chances at 5-on-5, but just for one reason or another, the puck hasn't been able to go in often. And he has 5 points. He had 3 points in a 2-game stretch. Like he's played some good hockey recently. I feel like though that it just this year was more about getting him into that full rhythm here. I feel like this is a guy that in 2 years we're talking about 65 points, 70 points, can play with anybody in that lineup and be effective. But right now, it's like he's been unlucky. Like you said, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins will take some of his ice time away. But at his best, I think that Savoy is going to be a top six player long term for Edmonton.
I feel like it's not just him, right? Like it's the entire Edmonton Oilers seem a little bit broken right now and a little bit unlucky and not scoring at the rate we feel like they should. And I think had they had the offense we're used to seeing, Savoy would obviously have more points. And I think we'd be talking about him a little bit more. Like you said, just been a little bit unfortunate. I think a lot of that goes to the fact that it's not just him, not putting up points. It's kind of that entire roster. Obviously a disappointing loss last night again. Teams still trying to find their way. Matthew Wood of the Nashville Predators splashed on the scene with a hat trick in Madison Square Garden last Monday, but it's been more than just one game. He's got 9 points in his last 9 games. The shot volume is really, really solid. And it's doing all of this in very limited ice time, like 12, 13 minutes a night. Do you think he carves out a bigger role this year in Nashville? And kind of what's his outlook? Because I've watched quite a few Nashville games, and pretty frequently he looks like one of the best players on the ice for them already.
So Wood was actually one of the best rookies in the preseason. And I think that was something where, like, okay, there's a lot of excitement there. And then he got hurt, and he kind of had to go on the back burner. But there hasn't been much to watch on the Predators this season, obviously, if you look at the standings. But with Wood, he's got an outstanding shot. He could play on the power play. And he didn't make Canada's World Junior team last year as a returning player. And I think part of that was because of his skating. And it feels like that is something that has improved. From talking to a lot of players, the one guy that's his biggest supporter is actually Macklin Celebrini. They grew up together. Celebrini and Wood, they played together at the U18s, and Celebrini had nothing but incredible things to say about him, just as a guy that is going to get the puck where it needs to be. And I think he's a future 30-goal scorer in the NHL. That's my prediction there. I don't know if he's going to be well-rounded enough to be more than that, but for a fantasy value, he's got a big frame. I don't think he's ever going to be a bruiser. He's not going to go out there and knock guys down, but he's going to be able to hold his own. He can go out there and take some nice shots and will be valuable in the power play. So that's more of a long-term thing. He's playing really good right now. I do wonder how much of this is just this new guy energy coming into the lineup and playing for all this momentum. Will it kind of fall a bit? I didn't think he was as effective in those 2 games against Pittsburgh recently. But that being said, I think that, in a system where they needed a guy to come in and take control and be very effective with the puck, Matthew Wood has done that. So really like him right now. I think he's more of a long-term threat, but I know he's taken in all my fantasy leagues right now. The guy I'm facing this week has him. He's actually really not happy with him over the last 2 games, but that's okay for me.
Yeah, I was definitely pushing towards him being a great streaming option over the weekend, and it didn't pan out against the Penguins. I was hoping that after the hat trick, he may have carved out a little bit of a bigger role, and that just did not happen. Dalibor Dvorsky from the St. Louis Blues, he was called up, amid some injuries to the Blues, but really also just to provide a spark to what's been a very sleepy offense this season. And he's done well so far in a limited role, seen some power play one time. I'm just really curious, with this team, obviously Braden Schen's name's kind of always on the trade block, but if he doesn't get moved, Robert Thomas locked up long-term, Braden Schenn locked up for a few more years, Pius Suter's locked up for a few more years. What's Dvorsky's outlook over the next couple of years? Is he somebody worth holding on to in deep dynasty formats? Can he carve out a bigger role in St. Louis?
I think so, 100%. I'm a big Dvorsky fan, and I remember watching him play at the 2021 Helenka Gretzky, and he like basically dominated that tournament for Slovakia, a group that played well and they got to the finals, but it wouldn't have been, they would not have done that without Dvorsky. And he also played in like 5 World Juniors because he played in that canceled World Juniors too. But when you look at what he's been able to do since, so productive in the OHL, so productive in the AHL, it felt like it was always going to be a year where he'd play a bit in the NHL, a bit in the AHL, and it just kind of work on both things there. He's also valuable because he's a center and a winger. He plays equally good at both of those. So I think that give him time. He's going to get those opportunities. Right now, it's hard to do much when you're playing 10 minutes a night on a team that can't save shots and can't score. But I do think that overall, Dvorsky could be a very valuable guy. Again, another player that's probably in that 55 to 60 point range, but should be able to do that consistently because he's really smart. He can control a power play. You put that all together, and I do think Dvorsky is a very good long-term ad. But this year, I would not be touching many players from St. Louis.
The last one we're going to talk about here, and this is more of a personal question as a Red Wings fan, but Nate Danielson, he's yet to get on the score sheet in 4 games for the Red Wings since being called up from the AHL. Obviously missed the start of the season with an injury, but I'm just curious if you project him to be the future number 1 center in Detroit behind Dylan Larkin, who's having an outstanding season. And maybe how soon do you expect him to maybe fill that role? Because obviously if it's in the near term, Detroit has some very good top 6 wingers, and that is a valuable spot, and they're kind of looking for that number 2 center, somebody that's going to work there. So do you think that's a spot that he could take as soon as this year, or is it still more of a future outlook for him?
It always felt like he was going to be better in real life than he'd be in fantasy. And so if you're taking that from a fantasy perspective, it's like, I know he's had a good year in the AHL, but it always feels like you look at the things that he does well. He's really difficult to beat in front of the net because he's actually quite strong. He can get in the way of shots. He's defensively responsible. We've seen him play penalty kill at other levels. Like, this is someone who I think has a lot more real life value, and it maybe isn't going to put up a ton of points. I still feel like, if he could be your number 3 center, and he would be a very good number 3 center, like you want someone who's a bit more skilled, that can drive the play a bit more. But in terms of just actual impact to a team, it always felt like Danielson was a safe pick by Detroit, not a high-end pick, but someone who is going to be just so good at a lot of things. And you're like, you know what? I can trust him. He's not going to go out there and make mistakes, and he could go out there and play with everybody. So I don't expect a ton of points from him in the NHL. Maybe a guy who maxes out at 45, but I do think that in general, like the way he thinks the game, the way he battles, he's going to be a very valuable player. But I would prefer to have someone a bit more skilled taking that number 1 or number 2 center job.
Would you prefer Marco Kasper in that lineup?
I know Kasper hasn't had like an explosive season by any means, but Kasper is just a bit more of a skilled player, and I feel like someone who could drive the play a bit more. Like, it feels like that would be the right pick, but you need him to be able to be an everyday contributor and bring that consistency. But again, like if Danielson's your number 3 center, that means you're in a really good spot depth-wise. That's kind of how I'm looking at it. Whether it's Kasper at number 2, whether it's or 1, like if you could get him if Danielson's your number 3, you're going to be in really good shape, because I know a lot of Red Wings fans definitely feel higher on him than I do, but just watching him, like, I don't know if he's got that extra step in his game that's going to be able to go out there and dominate. But I really did like what I saw from him in Grand Rapids this year. That was definitely a really good start, and I hope that he can continue building on that.
I'm going to put you on the spot here. Of the names that we talked about, who would be maybe your top 3 kind of long-term keeper dynasty holds?
I'm going to go with goalies are always difficult, but Murashov, I feel like you look at Pittsburgh and they always just find like a goalie that just figures it out, right? There was a point where Tristan Jarry was one of the better goalies in the NHL.
For sure.
There was a time where Matt Murray led the team to 2 Stanley Cups. I think Murashov, at the very least, is going to go out there and put up a fight, and he's just playing with so much momentum there. I like Levshunov. I think he's going to be so valuable, whether on that top power play or on the second power play. Regardless, he's going to have guys like Frankie Nazar, Oliver Moore, and, of course, Connor Bedard to pass to, and Anton Friendel coming up. He's going to have a lot of guys to work with, and I'm going to go with Matt Savoy. I think that you aren't going to find a more of this group. You're not going to find anyone as skilled or as smart as he is. He just needs to keep adjusting to the pace of play, and he'll figure it out. But it's not easy to be an Edmonton top 6 player, because you might play with McDavid or Draisaitl, but the pressure's on. If you don't perform, you can see what happens. But I do think with Savoy, he's gonna figure it out.
All right, I'm going to give you the floor here before we sign off for the day. Is there anybody that we didn't talk about that you really want to highlight as somebody you feel has a very bright future and is a must-own in Dynasty Keeper Leagues that maybe even isn't in the NHL yet? Like, who is somebody that you just absolutely love?
I think you got to go with Beckett Seneca. Just the way that he's out there, just grinding every shift. He wants to knock you down. He's so competitive, and Anaheim's a very exciting team. So I think he's going to be in really good shape there. Z Buyam, another one that feels like he's been a bit misused early on. Maybe not dominating by any means, but I feel like it's going to be. He's going to figure it out and be a very effective defenseman. Alexander Nikishin, I still think the world of him. He's put up 8 points in 19 games, which as a guy coming over to North America for the first time is still pretty impressive. Like, it's not like a guy going from the OHL or AHL to the NHL, like having to change your whole style of play and having to change your lifestyle and everything to come over here. It's difficult, and I think he's looked really good. And I will always be a Ryan Leonard fan, because even if he's not scoring, he's going to go out there and piss people off. And I will point out, while he's a bit slow on this rookie season, look at guys that are kind of similar in the way they play. Brad Marchand's obviously smaller. Tom Wilson. Those guys took a bit to figure it out and become as effective as they are. I feel like Ryan Leonard's going to follow a very similar track there. So those are the guys I'm looking at. And if you like faceoffs, Fraser Minton in Boston's also not a bad choice.
That is going to do it for this edition of the DFO Fantasy Show. Steven, it's always an absolute pleasure to chat with you. Your knowledge of these young players is just through the roof, and I really look forward to this segment every other Tuesday here on the DFO Fantasy Show. If you ever have questions for Steven for these episodes, please feel free to reach out to us on Twitter. We'll be happy to get to them on the show. But thank you, Steven, for joining us, and we will see you back here on Wednesday for Waiver Wire Wednesday. Thanks for watching this video. If you want more great fantasy hockey and betting content from myself, Carter Hutton, Matthew Barnaby, and the rest of the DFO analysts, make sure you subscribe to the DFO Fantasy and Betting YouTube channel today and never miss a minute.